no foul. And if you want to stick around for an extra 10 minutes, I'm going to deep dive into the subject. So today is Sunday, and that's part of relationships. So Monday through Friday at Tomorrow's Police Officer, the in fact, let me the goal is Monday through Friday. We talk about all sorts of different stuff. Last week we dove deep into the DC protests, and then toward the end of the week, we were talking about communicating with each other, your intent versus impact. But on the weekends, because it's family time for most people, even though as cops, we work a lot of weekends. Most of the time, it's family time on the weekends. Whether it is your weekend, happens to be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or it happens to be a Saturday, Sunday. On Saturdays and Sundays, we're spending the time talking about relationships. So yesterday, I promised to share with you a tool where when you get home, you can be the best person possible. Because the reality is this: when we go to work, we expend a lot of energy. That energy gets generated and restored throughout the day or the night, but it generally, by the time we get home, a lot of different things are happening. Number one, our energy level is lower. Number two, we're generally beginning to relax. Now, we still have that situational awareness on the way home. We're making sure we're not being followed. We're making sure that we're not falling asleep on the way home especially after a graveyard shift. The shift that happens. Now, for me, I used to have certain music that I would listen to on the way to work, and certain music I would listen to on the way home, and they were completely different genres. On the way home, I was listening to, maybe I might be listening to Jim Brickman, where it was just piano music. And maybe it might be classical music, just something that was no yelling, no screaming, no amped up, just slow beats per minute music, because I wanted to start winding down. On the way to work, anything and everything that had an up tempo. So when we got home, let's say you're using that same technique. You're listening to some mellow music on the way home. You arrive, your energy stores are depleted. You have, generally speaking, been chewed up and spit out from everything at work. And depending on how your shift was, you might be in a bad mood. You might be stressed out. You might have seen some horrible things. And what I want you to do is, instead of living by default, live your life by design. And just like you designed your response to a critical incident, where you had your what ifs going through your head as you were driving to the call, you had maybe already pre-planned a response to this location. As an example, if you've been called to this house several times before and you know the house and you know the people inside the house, you've probably, or should have certainly, pre-planned your response to that. If it's a bank or a local liquor store that you've identified as being a potential place where there's a crime that's going to be occurring, you've pre-planned your response for that. So you've pre-planned your responses for things at work. I want you to take that mindset and pre-plan for who you're going to be. Who's the person that's going to walk through the door? Because I know that your family, whoever you live with, we call them the cohabitants in the 4 C's. So you've got the community, your colleagues, cohabitants, and commerce. Your cohabitants. Whoever that is. It might be that you're single and you have a roommate. It might be your animals. Maybe you have a cat or a dog or a parakeet. It doesn't matter. What is waiting for you when you walk through that door, even if it's just a house plant? Here's the thing, especially if there's humans waiting for you inside that door. They have an expectation of who you are. They have a you in their head, in their mind, that they love, that they enjoy being around, that makes them laugh or just makes their life better. That's who they have in their head. And so what I want you to do is pre-plan your response to your home for when you walk in the door. So you're not reacting. You are responding to whatever meets you when you go through that door. And you're showing up in the best way possible. So how do you show up in the best way possible? You can use a couple different techniques. One of them I recommend is a visualization. Now, visualization it's been proven through multiple studies to be highly effective. They took basketball players and they had some of them practice free throws and some of them visualizing and then practicing the free throws. And they found repeatedly that the ones that visualized and then practiced the free throws did much better. So visualization in sports has been used widely. We use it in a lot of different contexts. If you're going through the hiring process and you're going to be taking a physical agilities test or physical ability test, different agencies call it different things, visualizing yourself going through that course, especially through some areas that you might find challenging, like getting over the 6-foot wall, or maybe it's doing the dummy drag, or maybe it's the 100-yard dash, whatever portion of that PAT course that you struggle with, doing visualization can help you there as well. But for when you arrive home at the end of your shift, you want to be the person that your family wants to see walk through the door, not what's left of you after a really hard shift. Do you see those two very, very, very different things? Who you are when you get done with work is oftentimes not the best you, not the you that they hope walks through the door. Now you might be thinking, you know what? Every time I walk through the door, my wife she's immediately on my butt and she's like criticizing me. I can't do anything right. I walk through the door and bam, I'm hit with it after having 10 or 12 hours or 14 hours if it was an overtime shift, having all that afterwards. You know what? Yes. And you are not responsible for how they act. You are responsible for how you act. You're responsible for how you respond. And just briefly, be diving into this on another relationship 10 at 10. There's a big difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is that almost instinctual thing. Someone goes to hit you and you move into your defensive tactics frame of mind, and it's reactive. Responding is when you're using the best you. Hopefully there's enough time where you can think about what you're going to say. Yesterday I talked about humor and running it through a little bit of a filter. And some of us joke about, well, I don't have a filter. I wasn't born with one. Well, as Steve Jensen said, a friend from many, many, many years ago, I have the taste of shoe leather still in my mouth because I've stuck my foot in there so many times. And Steve, I love for you being vulnerable and making that comment. And I hear you on that one. I'm with you on it. So what can we do so we don't have shoe leather, the taste of shoe leather sticking around in our mouth? That's responding versus reacting. So that's it for the first 10 minutes of 10 at 10. Stick around and I'm going to deep dive into exactly how you do this visualization, some examples of what you can visualize so that you can be the best person walking through the door. Okay, thanks for sticking around for the second half of today's 10 at 10. In the second half, I'm deep diving into what I talked about the first, which is changing from the state that you're in after a shift before you walk in the door. And it doesn't matter what occupation you're in. Even if you're listening to this and you're not in law enforcement, it still works. A friend of mine was a short haul truck driver. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but he basically did day trips. And I know how incredibly tired he was at the end of the day. I remember hearing stories about how he was so frustrated with drivers that would cut in front of him in a little car or on a motorcycle, and then they'd hit their brakes to make a right turn into a driveway or a supermarket or something, and he's driving a big truck. And now he's got to get on brakes. And he's like, do they think I can just stop that fast? Why didn't they drop behind me, wait an extra 5 seconds, drop behind me, and then not do something that created danger? It was nerve-wracking for him because he didn't want to hurt anybody. And of course, he didn't want to be in an accident and have all this bad stuff that comes along with that either. So it doesn't matter what your occupation is, but for cops, we see a lot of stuff at work. We deal with a lot of frustrating people. And depending on how rough your day has been, you can be completely spent. So the first step when you leave the station, and there's a lot of techniques about how you're going to end your shift that you can use. I'm not going to get into those today. That's a different episode. But when you leave the station, think about your choice of music. Maybe you're the kind of person who wants it completely silent in the car. You've had the police radio going, you've had a partner talking in your ear, you've been talking to people all day. You just want some silence. And that's cool. That's totally cool. Music calms the savage beast. I still remember that phrase. It was the first time I ever heard that was on Bugs Bunny when I was a kid growing up. Music calms the savage beast. And sometimes we are the savage beast. So find some music that you like that's relaxing. Jim Brickman, No Words, one of my favorite albums of all time. I happen to love piano music. George Winston, I believe it was Autumn. And there's some songs on there. Colors was one of my favorites. I could listen to that. It didn't matter how stressed out I was. That always brought me down. Classical music worked the same way for me. Now, maybe you don't like any of that. Maybe you hate the piano, but you love the acoustic guitar. And so maybe you'll listen to your favorite artist who's playing acoustic guitar. Whatever it is, find some music that works for you. Try it for a week or two. Don't just try it once. No, I didn't like that. Try it for a week or two. Then when you get home, before you get out of your car, so you're still kind of protected. You've had that situational awareness as you go home. You're looking in your rearview mirror. You're varying your routes going home. All that officer safety stuff that all of us know to do. But now you're home. Shut off the car. Shut off the music. Have just a quiet moment in the car, and then think about how your family would want you to be, not how you think they expect you're going to be, because they say that you're cranky every time you walk in the door. And if you are, this is really important for you to do. It's a huge red flag when your cohabitants, your family, your roommates, whoever, is verbalizing that you're cranky or whatever negative thing they're saying about you when you come home after work, that they don't like it. If they're actually verbalizing it, it's gotten bad enough that they're saying something about it. I want you to think about that. How many times do you just suck something up and you don't even say anything about it? You don't like something, you're unhappy about something, but you don't say anything about it. They're saying something about it. That's a huge red flag. Just a little side note. Now, you've turned off the car, you've turned off the music. It's quiet. You started to think about who is it that they really like? What's the best part of you? Are you funny? Are you a person who does things for other people, acts of service? Are you a hugger? Do you do you like playing games with your kids? Do you like picking them up and flying them around like an airplane? And if they're older, you can't do that. Can you pick them up and spin them around in a circle like you're dancing with them, or just spinning them? Because see, for them, when you do something like that, whatever they've been going through in their day, it's a state change for them as well. But what you're doing is when you walk in that door, you're designing your life. You are deciding in advance how you are going to show up in this world. Most importantly, you're deciding in advance how you're going to show up as the best you possible walking in that door for the people who are most important to you. Now, the challenge is when you don't particularly like them. Maybe you have a teenager at home who just is driving you up a wall. They're on restriction more than they're not. And you know that you're going to walk in and you just know, and this is an important learning point for you. You know, you've decided in advance when I say, oh yeah, I know they're going to act like this. Really? That means you've decided what their actions are going to be. Think about that for just a moment. Because you don't know. You can guess, and it's probably a great educated guess based on past history. However, you don't know. And when you visualize that, when you expect that, when it looks like it is happening, then you just let it continue down that same path. You're never, probably not going to do anything to change it, except get frustrated because, yep, I knew that was going to happen. Try setting a different visualization in your mind. Try setting a visualization where, yes, maybe your teenager is on their phone and they're buried and you're like, whatever your kid's name is, Joey. Hey, Joey. And you're like, yeah. What are you going to do for that? Rather than reacting, why don't you put the damn phone down? Or just ignoring them and walking into the other room and accepting that. Can you decide to respond differently? Can you decide to respond in a better way? Maybe if you did, the relationship might be different. Remember my relationship math series. Rules minus relationship equals rebellion. Now, you might get rebellion from your teenager anyway. But if you don't have a good relationship with them and you impose rules minus relationship, rules without a relationship equals rebellion. And that doesn't matter whether it's a spouse or a roommate or a small child. It doesn't matter. So visualize the best you. How can you be the best you? And you're like, Carrie, great concept. You got those rose-colored glasses on again because you know what? I'm wiped out. I had a dead baby call today. I almost shot somebody. I went to a fatal traffic collision. I have my lieutenant just on my butt all the time. I got lazy peers who don't pick up the load. So I got all the paper for my beat and their beat and the other beat. You just don't understand. I do understand because I've been in all of those situations. Why do you think I know this stuff? 30 years as a cop, I've been in these situations. And I've walked through the door and been a complete jackass. And I've walked through the door being the best possible me. And what I can guarantee you is when I was walking through the door being the best possible me, my life was a whole lot better. And what's cool was my family's life was a whole lot better too. Do that shift in the car. Visualize the best person that you can be before you walk through that door. Decide, this is what I'm going to do, and live your life by design, not by default. Don't just pour in the door as a puddle of Carrie, puddle of Frank, puddle of Joe, and just be a blob. Don't do that. Your family deserves better. Your family wants better. Your family wants you. They love you. Even though sometimes they might not show it real well, that is what they want. And you have no control over them. You have control over you. That's it for relationship on the weekend. So tomorrow, 10 at 10, on Monday, we start a new theme. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Please join me. Until then, stay safe. Thanks for being here.